Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
The gym was a cathedral of sweat and ambition. Its air thick with the metallic clang of weights, the rhythmic hum of treadmills, and the faint scent of rubber mats and disinfectant. Neon lights cast a sterile glow over the rows of machines, their reflections bouncing off mirrored walls that seemed to amplify every movement, every glance. Anna stood near the free weights, her new leggings and matching sports bra a gift from her husband, Michael, fitting snugly, a vibrant shade of teal that made her feel bold. Even if she didn't quite believe it yet, she adjusted her ponytail, her hazel eyes scanning the room, not for the next exercise, but for something else, something she couldn't quite name. She'd told Michael she was joining the gym to take better care of herself, and Head believed her, his face lighting up with that familiar, earnest smile. Head paid for the membership, without hesitation, bought her a wardrobe of athletic wear, sleek leggings, breathable tops, even a pair of neon running shoes she'd eyed online. Head even offered to drive her after work when she claimed she was too tired to make the trip herself, his hand resting gently on her shoulder as he said, "I'm proud of you, Anna. This is good." Michael thought he was supporting her, being the good husband he always tried to be. But Anna wasn't here for her health. She was here for attention. It had started innocently enough, or so she told herself. Michael was a good man, steady, reliable, the kind of husband who remembered anniversaries, who left sticky notes on the fridge with little messages like "have a great day" or "love you always." But his affection felt routine, predictable, like a song played so often it had lost its melody. Their marriage, 5 years strong, had settled into a comfortable rhythm. But comfort had a way of turning into complacency, a slow erosion of the spark that had once lit up their nights. Anna missed the thrill of being seen, truly seen, not just as Michael's wife, the graphic designer who kept their suburban life running smoothly, but as a woman with desires, fears, and dreams that didn't fit neatly into their tidy house with its white picket fence and manicured lawn. The gym was her escape, a place where she could shed the weight of routine and become someone else, someone vibrant, someone desired, even if just for an hour. Jason, the trainer, noticed her on her second day. He was everything the gym promised: tall, broad-shouldered, with a chiseled jaw and a smile that felt like it was meant just for her. His dark eyes had a way of lingering, not too long to be inappropriate, but long enough to make her pulse quicken, her breath catch in her throat. He approached her as she fumbled with a kettlebell, her form awkward, her confidence shaky, her hands trembling slightly from the unfamiliar weight. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice smooth, warm, like a melody she hadn't realized she'd been craving. She nodded, grateful for the excuse to talk, her cheeks flushing as she set the kettlebell down. He corrected her stance, his hands brushing her shoulders lightly, professionally, but with a touch that felt personal, intentional, like a secret shared in a crowded room. He asked about her day, her goals, her mood, simple questions, but delivered with a focus that made her feel like the only person in the gym, maybe the only person in the world. Unlike Michael's distracted "how was work?" over dinner, his eyes on his phone or the TV, Jason's questions demanded answers, invited her to share pieces of herself she'd almost forgotten. She told him about her job as a graphic designer, the monotony of client revisions, the way she sometimes felt like her creativity was being squeezed dry by endless demands for something more modern. He listened, nodding, his eyes never straying to his phone or the clock on the wall, his attention a gift she hadn't realized she was starving for. It was intoxicating. That attention, like a drug she hadn't known, she was addicted to. Michael tried, in his way. Had always been attentive, or at least he thought he was. He'd ask about her day, make her coffee in the morning, plan quiet dinners at home when their schedules aligned, simple gestures that had once felt like love, but now felt like obligation. He didn't notice the way her smiles had grown forced, the way her laughter had quieted over the months, the way her eyes lingered on the horizon when they sat together in silence. He didn't see the restlessness in her, the hunger for something more than the life they'd built: a tidy house in a quiet neighborhood, a marriage that looked perfect on paper, but felt hollow in her chest. He was too busy with his own world, his job as a project manager consuming his days and nights, his mind always half elsewhere, chasing deadlines and promotions. Anna didn't blame him, not exactly, but she felt the distance growing, a chasm she didn't know how to cross. The gym became Anna's sanctuary, a place where she could shed the weight of routine and become someone else, someone who mattered. Jason was there 3 times a week, his schedule aligning perfectly with hers, as if the universe had conspired to bring them together. Their conversations grew longer, stretching beyond workouts into personal territory, a dangerous but thrilling shift. He told her about his life growing up in a rough neighborhood on the city's south side, clawing his way out through discipline and determination, the way he'd learned to read people, to know what they needed before they did. She told him about her childhood dreams of being an artist, the way she'd once painted murals on her bedroom walls, vibrant swirls of color that made her feel alive, the way she'd stopped painting altogether when life got too busy, when marriage and work and bills had buried her dreams under a pile of responsibilities. He listened, really listened, and his responses thoughtful, encouraging, sometimes teasing made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. It wasn't physical, not at first. There were no stolen kisses, no clandestine touches, beyond the professional corrections during workouts, his hands guiding her arms or adjusting her posture with a precision that felt almost clinical, that carried a spark. But there was a current that ran through every glance, every shared laugh, every moment when their eyes met and held a little too long. Anna told herself it was harmless, just a friendship, a way to feel good about herself again, to reclaim the confidence she'd lost somewhere along the way. But deep down, she knew it was more. She knew it in the way her heart raced when she saw Jason's name on her phone, in the way she spent extra time getting ready for the gym, choosing outfits that hugged her curves, in the way she started lying to Michael about how long her workouts took, claiming traffic or extra sets when she'd actually been sitting in the gym's lounge, talking to Jason about nothing and everything. The first real betrayal wasn't physical. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of evening that felt heavy with routine, the air thick with the weight of another day blending into the next. Michael was at home, setting the table for dinner, a pasta dish he'd spent an hour preparing. His attempt at making the night special. He'd texted her earlier, a simple "can't wait to see you," and she'd smiled at the message, a pang of guilt tugging at her as she drove to the gym. Anna was supposed to be home by 7, but she'd lingered after her workout, her muscles tired, but her mind restless, sitting in the parking lot with her phone in her hand. She texted Jason, a simple "you still around?" That felt innocent enough, but carried a weight she couldn't ignore, a line she knew she was crossing. He called her back, his voice low and warm, and they talked about nothing, about everything, about the kind of things she used to share with Michael, but hadn't in months. They talked about her favorite book, a dog-eared copy of the bell jar she'd read in college, and how it had made her feel understood in a way she couldn't explain. He told her about a hiking trip he'd taken last summer, the way the mountains had made him feel small but free. When he asked if she was alone, his voice soft, almost hesitant, she smiled, a secret thrill running through her. Michael was asleep in the next room, the dinner cold on the table, and Anna was still on the phone, her voice a whisper, her heart somewhere else. The calls became a habit, a dangerous rhythm that pulsed through her nights. Late at night, when Michael was asleep or working late, Anna would slip into the guest room or sit in her car, her phone pressed to her ear, Jason's voice a lifeline in the dark. They talked about their lives, their dreams, the things they wanted but couldn't have. He told her about his ex, a relationship that had ended in flames, but taught him what he wanted: someone real, someone who saw him for more than his muscles or his charm, someone who could match his intensity. She told him about Michael, about the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who'd promised her the world, but now seemed content to let her orbit his attention fractured by work and routine. The conversations were intimate, not in a physical sense, but in the way they bared their souls, peeling back layers they'd kept hidden from everyone else. Anna knew she was crossing a line, but she couldn't stop. Each call, each text, each stolen moment at the gym made her feel alive, seen, desired in a way Michael's steady love couldn't match. She told herself it was okay, that she wasn't cheating, not really. But the guilt was there, a shadow that followed her home, sitting heavy in her chest as she watched Michael sleep, his face soft and trusting, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. One evening, after a particularly long call with Jason, Anna came home to find Michael waiting up, his eyes tired, but searching, a glass of wine untouched on the coffee table. "Where were you?" he asked, not accusingly, but with a quiet concern that cut deeper than anger, his voice carrying a weight she hadn't heard before. "I called the gym. They said you left an hour ago." Her heart pounded, her mind scrambling for an excuse, her palms sweaty as she set her gym bag down. "I got caught up talking to someone," she said, the half-truth bitter on her tongue, her voice shaking slightly. "Lost track of time," he nodded, accepting her answer, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a crack in the trust they'd built over years. "You've been different lately," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Is everything okay?" She wanted to tell him, to spill everything, the loneliness, the restlessness, the way Jason made her feel alive, the way she was drowning in a life that felt too small. But she couldn't. The words stuck in her throat, trapped by guilt and fear, by the weight of what it would mean to admit the truth. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile, her lips trembling as she met his gaze. "Just tired." He reached for her hand, his touch warm, familiar, but it felt like a tether she wasn't sure she wanted any more. "I'm here, Anna," he said, his voice thick with emotion, his eyes searching hers for something she wasn't sure she could give. "You know that, right?" She nodded, her throat tight, and went to bed, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. She loved Michael, she did, but love wasn't enough to fill the void that had grown inside her, a hunger for something more, something that made her feel alive. She didn't know what she wanted: freedom, attention, a way back to the woman she used to be, but she knew she couldn't keep living this way, torn between two men, two versions of herself, two paths that seemed to lead in opposite directions. The gym became a battleground, a place where Anna wrestled with her desires and her guilt, where every step on the treadmill felt like a metaphor for the life she was running from. Jason was there, as always, his presence a magnet she couldn't resist, his smile a beacon in the fog of her confusion. Their workouts grew longer, their conversations deeper, the boundaries blurring with every shared laugh, every lingering glance. He never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give, but his attention was a drug, and she was hooked. She started noticing the way he looked at her, the way his voice softened when he said her name, the way his hand lingered a moment too long when he corrected her form, his fingers brushing her waist or her arm in a way that felt like a promise. It was intoxicating, dangerous, and she couldn't pull away, even as the guilt gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the life she was betraying. One night, after another late call with Jason, Anna sat in her car, the phone still warm in her hand, the city quiet around her. The streetlights cast long shadows across the dashboard, their glow a stark contrast to the darkness inside her. She thought about Michael, about the dinner he'd made, the way he'd looked at her with that quiet concern, the way he'd tried to reach her even as she pulled away. She thought about Jason, about the way he made her feel like she was more than a wife, more than a role to be played, more than the sum of her routines. She thought about herself, about the woman she'd become and the woman she wanted to be, about the dreams she'd buried and the life she'd stopped living. The guilt was a weight, but so was the longing, and she didn't know which was heavier. She drove home, her heart a tangle of hope and fear, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. When she walked through the door, Michael was asleep on the couch, a book open on his chest, the TV flickering with some late-night show, its laugh track jarring in the quiet. She stood there for a moment, watching him, The man she'd promised to love forever, his face soft in sleep, his breathing steady. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't keep running from it. She needed to choose not between Michael and Jason, but between the life she had and the life she wanted, between the safety of routine and the risk of something more. The next morning, Anna woke early, the dawnlight filtering through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the bedroom. Michael was still asleep, his arm draped over the pillow, his face peaceful in a way that made her heart ache. She slipped out of bed and made coffee, the routine grounding her as she thought about what came next. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she needed to start with honesty with Michael, with herself. She couldn't keep living in the shadows, chasing attention to fill a void she hadn't named. She needed to face it, to fight for what she wanted, even if it meant breaking her own heart. When Michael woke, she was waiting, her hands wrapped around a mug, her resolve firm. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her, her eyes meeting his with a clarity she hadn't felt in months. "Really talk." He looked at her, his eyes searching, a flicker of fear in his expression, and nodded. "Okay," he said, his voice soft but resolute, and for the first time in months, she felt like he was really listening. The conversation was raw, messy, the kind that stripped away the layers of pretense they'd both been hiding behind. Anna told him about the loneliness, the way she felt invisible, the way she'd been chasing something she couldn't name, something that made her feel alive again. She didn't mention Jason, not yet, but she didn't need to. This wasn't about him, it was about her, about them, about the life they'd let slip away. Michael listened, his face a mix of guilt and sorrow, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion, his words halting but honest. He admitted he'd been distracted, consumed by work, by the pressure to provide, to be the man he thought she needed. He hadn't seen her, not really, hadn't noticed the way she'd been fading, the way her light had dimmed. The realization hit him like a blow, and for the first time, Anna saw the man she'd fallen in love with, the one who'd promised her the world, who'd laughed with her under the stars, who'd believed in her dreams even when she didn't. They didn't solve everything that morning, but they started. They talked about boundaries, about making time for each other, about rediscovering the love that had brought them together. Anna promised to be honest, to stop hiding her feelings, to fight for what she needed. Michael promised to be present, to listen, to try harder, to be more than the sum of his routines. It wasn't a fix, but it was a beginning, a fragile thread of hope in a tapestry that had begun to unravel. In the weeks that followed, Anna cut back on her gym visits, not because she was running from Jason, but because she was running toward herself. She started painting again, setting up a small studio in the spare room, her canvases filled with bold colors and raw emotion, each stroke a reclamation of the artist she'd been. She reconnected with old friends, took a pottery class on weekends, began to rediscover the woman she'd been before marriage, before routine had dulled her edges. Michael was there, too, trying in his way, planning date nights to quiet restaurants, leaving work early to join her for coffee, asking questions that felt genuine, not rehearsed. He started leaving his phone in the other room during dinner, a small gesture that felt monumental, a sign that he was trying to see her again. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, a slow dance towards something better, a marriage that felt alive again. Jason faded into the background, not because Anna didn't care, but because she didn't need him anymore. His attention had been a mirror, reflecting the parts of herself she'd forgotten, but she was finding those parts on her own now. She saw him at the gym occasionally, their interactions polite but distant, the spark dimmed by her own clarity. She didn't hate him, didn't regret him, but she knew he'd been a symptom, not a solution, a temporary fix for a wound she needed to heal herself. One evening, months later, Anna sat in her studio, a canvas in front of her, just playing softly in the background, the notes weaving through the air like a memory. The music reminded her of the nights she'd spent chasing something she couldn't name, of the moments when she'd felt alive, but lost. But this was her story now, her canvas, her music. She dipped her brush in crimson, letting it glide across the canvas, her movements sure, her heart full. Michael was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, his laughter drifting through the house as he sang off-key to the radio, a sound that made her smile. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a life they were rebuilding together, one moment at a time. Anna didn't have all the answers, but she was finding her way. She was learning to love herself again, to fight for her own happiness, to build a life that felt like hers. She was more than a wife, more than a shadow in someone else's story. She was Anna, and she was enough. But the journey wasn't over. Anna knew that healing, like art, was a process, not a destination. There were days when the restlessness returned, when the temptation to slip back into old habits chasing attention, seeking validation felt almost overwhelming. She'd see Jason at the gym, his smile still warm, his presence still a pull, and she'd feel a flicker of the old spark, a reminder of how easy it would be to fall back into that dangerous rhythm. But she didn't. She'd learned to recognize the void inside her, to name it, to fill it with her own creativity, her own strength. She'd started therapy, a quiet decision she hadn't shared with Michael at first, a space where she could unpack the guilt, the longing, the parts of herself she'd buried. Her therapist, a kind woman with a knack for asking the right questions, helped her see that her restlessness wasn't just about Michael or Jason, it was about her, about the dreams she'd let go, the life she hadn't dared to imagine. Michael, too, was changing. He'd started prioritizing their marriage, not just in words but in actions. He took a step back at work, delegating tasks he'd once insisted on handling himself, carving out evenings for them to reconnect. They went on walks after dinner, their hands brushing as they talked about the future, about the things they wanted not just as a couple, but as individuals. Anna told him about her dream of opening an art studio, a place where she could teach, create, share her passion with others. Michael listened, his eyes bright with the same excitement He'd had when they were dating, and promised to support her, to be her partner in more than name. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real, and that was enough. The gym was no longer a battleground, but a place where Anna could focus on herself, not for attention, but for strength. She worked out alone now, her earbuds in, her mind clear, her body moving with a purpose that felt like her own. She still saw Jason from time to time, but the pull was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence in who she was becoming. She'd thanked him once, not for the attention, but for reminding her of the woman she'd forgotten, the one who deserved to be seen. He'd smiled, a little sad, a little proud, and wished her well. One spring evening, Anna and Michael sat on their porch, the air warm with the promise of summer, the sky streaked with pink and gold. They shared a bottle of wine, their laughter soft, their silences comfortable. Anna's sketchbook lay open on her lap, filled with drawings of the life. She was building portraits of Michael, landscapes of their neighborhood, abstract swirls of color that captured her emotions. Michael reached for her hand, his touch steady, grounding, and she felt a warmth that wasn't just love, but trust, a belief that they could face whatever came next. Anna knew there would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, moments when the past would whisper in her ear, tempting her to run. But she also knew she was stronger now, more sure of herself, more sure of what she wanted. She was painting her own story, one brushstroke at a time, and she wasn't alone. Michael was there, not as her savior or her shadow, but as her partner, flawed but trying, just as she was. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna leaned her head on Michael's shoulder, her heart full. She didn't have all the answers, but she was finding her way. She was learning to love herself, to fight for her happiness, to build a life that felt like hers. She was Anna, and she was enough. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the End Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.